Hi, I'm Tony Stoltzfus, and today we're going to be talking about healing in heaven. What gets healed and where is that in Scripture? So we'll use Revelation 21, and there's a number of references to our healing sprinkled throughout that chapter on the new heaven. So that's the basis of what we're going to talk about. And the first verse is Revelation 21:3. He will dwell among them. And in healing terms, what that means is loneliness is banished from heaven. If you've ever been sitting in the waiting room at the hospital and struggled to feel God's presence, or reached out for him and wondered if he was there, that is never going to happen anymore in heaven, because he will be physically, tangibly present, and you will know it just like you know that the person sitting next to you is sitting next to you. So loneliness is completely banished from heaven. The second thing is crying and pain will cease. This is from Revelation 21:4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will no longer be any mourning or crying or pain. So first off, it's impossible to feel physical pain in heaven. Pain on earth has a purpose. It keeps us from further injury. So you put your hand on the hot stove and pain tells you to take it back off. But there's no hot stove in heaven. There's no falls. There's no stubbed toes. There's no skin knees. So there's no need for pain. So heaven does not include physical pain. And it doesn't include psychological pain either. In heaven, the laws of nature are such that you can't do anything but love. There are no unkind words in heaven. Rejection doesn't happen in heaven. Betrayal doesn't happen in heaven. So you will never be hurt in those ways. And he will wipe away every tear, I think means that includes all our past pain on earth. And a good example of this is inner healing on earth. If you've ever been through that, you go to a memory and walk through it with Jesus. And what you're doing is creating new associations, where before that memory was associated with pain, now it's associated with Jesus' presence and with healing. So when you get triggered, what your brain does is it takes an emotion from the past and it brings it into your present. But in heaven, you won't be triggered, because when you remember things in heaven, you'll remember the healing. You'll remember the presence of Jesus in the memory, not the pain. So there's no pain or crying in heaven. Third thing is, in that same verse, there will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any mourning or crying. So death and Hades are thrown into the lake of fire. That's Revelation 20:14. They will cease to exist. So once you step into the new heaven of Revelation 21, death is no longer in existence. Nothing in heaven can die because everything in heaven is alive in God's life, in the one life of God. God can't die, and neither can anything in heaven. And since there's no dying, there's no mourning it. You will never go to a funeral in heaven. It will simply not exist. And Scripture also teaches us that the whole creation will be set free into the glorious liberty of the children of God. This is Romans 8:21. So creation won't be able to die in the new heaven and earth. No butterfly, no plant, no tree, nothing will ever pass away. Next point, there's no unmet needs in heaven. Revelation 21:6 says, I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of water of life without cost. And Jesus uses this concept with the Samaritan woman, the woman at the well. There's a spring I can give you. You'll never have to come back here and get water again. And I think there's two meanings to this. The first is physical needs. Thirst represents the food, clothing, and shelter triad of what we need for life. And everything we need for life is free for the taking in heaven. So you will never experience a lack of what you need for life. And in fact, the only thing in heaven you need for life is God. So we don't eat for sustenance in heaven. We eat for satisfaction. We eat for fun. So no lack of anything physical. There's no psychological needs in heaven. When Adam and Eve walked in the garden and talked with God in the cool of the day, and they were naked and unashamed, they had no psychological needs because their needs are met in relationship with God. And that picture of Eden is the same in heaven. There are no needs for significance or love or belonging or security or goodness because they're perfectly met within our relationship with God. So, no needs in heaven. Next, there's no night. There's no darkness. Darkness represents where evil hides. So there's no darkness in God. So there's no darkness in heaven. Evil has no place to hide. Evil has no secret corner it can sneak out from behind and catch you. And that's because evil doesn't even exist in heaven. In Revelation 21:25, it says of the city, her gates will never be shut. And you have to understand what that meant to a first century person. Jerusalem, for instance, had city gates, and they were closed every night. And the reason for that is it kept marauders out, it kept the criminal element out, it kept wild animals out. Closing your gates meant you were secure within the walled city. And a city whose gates were never closed meant there were no external enemies. There was nothing to be afraid of that could come in. So evil has literally ceased to exist in the kingdom of heaven. And this also means, I used to wonder when I was a kid, if I got to heaven and I did something wrong, if they'd kick me out of heaven. But there are no wrong choices in heaven. It's only possible to love. It's only possible to do good. It's only possible to be grateful because evil has ceased. Those choices don't even exist anymore. So there's nothing you can do in heaven that will get you kicked out because there's nothing wrong you can do in heaven. So finally, the last thing is there's social healing in heaven. Verse 27 says, nothing unclean and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it. Now, as Christians, we have a tendency to read unclean as sinful, but that's not what it meant. Uncleanness is not sin. Uncleanness is what prevents you from living in a whole way in the community. And heaven has social healing. There is nothing in heaven to disrupt our community life. We'll never catch someone talking behind our back in a way that we don't like. People will never run each other down. There are no unkind words in heaven. Our relationships with each other and with God will function continuously in love and never go out of it. So that's the healing in heaven. So just to summarize, loneliness is banished in heaven. Physical pain and psychological pain is gone, and our pain from the past is healed as well. Death is no more, so there's no mourning because nothing ever dies, including in creation. There aren't even any unmet needs, physical or psychological. There's no darkness that evil can hide in. In fact, evil has ceased to exist. So we need no defenses. We need no defense mechanisms because there's nothing to defend against. And our social life is also healed. We can live together in community in a whole way. So that's a bit of what heaven will do for you.